Hey folks, in this video we're going to be discussing XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP is a robust, flexible function built within Google Sheets. We're going to be demonstrating how to use XLOOKUP, we're going to be deconstructing XLOOKUP, and then we're going to be briefly touching on if XLOOKUP is the right lookup for you. So our example today is going to focus on taking a list of names and then returning a country associated with them. So we're going to have a list of names, and then we're going to reference the values in column B of our data tab, and we're going to return the results of column A, which is our country tab. So we are going to start by adding a header into column B, which is where we are going to return our results. We are going to reference the names in column A of our XLOOKUP tab with the hopes of using our data tab in order to get some results. XLOOKUP has 6 arguments, 3 of which are mandatory. We're going to be focusing on the mandatory arguments today, and we are also going to be touching on the first optional argument, which enables us to add a missing value, which allows us to manage error messaging. So we are going to start by selecting our search key. This is the result that we want to look up. So we are going to select A2, and then we're going to use a comma, and we're going to identify our lookup range. This is the range to consider for the search. So we want to find a column in our data that has names in it so that we can match the search key to the lookup range. It's important to note that this range must be a single row or column. So if you put in more than one column in here, you're going to get an error message. So we're going to go to our data tab, and column B has names in it. So we're going to select column B for our second argument. And then when we move to our third argument, we have our result range. So this is the result to return if there is a match. We know that we want to pull in the country, so we're going to select column A. And you can see our search key in cell A2 is Allen, and Allen's country is the United States. And when we look up top here at our function preview, the United States is showing up, which is a really good indication that we've done everything correctly. And now we're getting United States for Allen, which is great. Now, instead of having to type in our function for every single row that we want to look up, we have a few options here. The first is to use this little blue box here and drag down our rows. So you can see our function in B2 is referencing cell A2, and then our function in B3 is referencing A3, and in row 5, A5 is being referenced in cell B5. So this function will dynamically respond given the parameters that we've set in there. In addition to dragging, we can double click this blue box, and what will happen is it will autofill the function all the way down to our last row with a value in here. So when I double click on this, we're going to get results all the way to row 21 and nothing for row 22 because there is nothing in row 22. Now you'll notice in row 21, we're getting an error message. That's what this hash and NA stands for, and we get this little red flag here, and then it literally says the word error because Joe did not return a result in our XLOOKUP because Joe does not exist in the data set. So we are getting an error message. Within XLOOKUP, our first optional argument is to manage missing values. This is giving us the ability to specify what we want to happen when an error is returned. This is a really cool function built into XLOOKUP, which is unique. If you're using something like index match or VLOOKUP, you don't have the ability to denote what you want to have happen when there's an error message. You have to use, there's a function called if error, and you have to nest your lookup, whether it's VLOOKUP or index match, within if error so that you can denote what you want to have happen in the event of an error. XLOOKUP has that function built in. So one thing that you could do is you could have a text response. So for our example here, I'm going to use our fourth argument for missing value in order to say, if there's an error, write the word missing. And now you can see, instead of getting an error message in here, the word missing now appears. You can have anything you want to in here, right? So if you wanted to, you could even add in, I always forget how to do this. Cool. So I'm on a Mac. I just did Control Command Spacebar. You could even add an emoji if you wanted to in here. Oh, sorry. Emojis are text. So if you want to add an emoji, you just have to put double quotes around it. And now you can see if I have an error message in here, I get a little sad face. So you can get cute with it. I would not recommend using emojis as, a lot, because you can run into some data management issues in here. But if you do feel like being cute, which I sometimes do, you can add in a little emoji in there. My recommendation to you is to just enter in a null value. This is my preference when I do error management. I like to have null values, because then when I'm auditing my data sets, I can just search for anything that is or is not null and quickly identify what's missing lookup values. Cool. So now that we've done that, why don't we start over from the beginning and just do a real quick rundown now that we've kind of had our introduction in there. So XLOOKUP has 6 arguments, 3 of which are mandatory. I think the fourth argument, which is the first optional, the missing value, is really powerful. If you don't put in a missing value, then it will just default to the error message. Additionally, you have an optional argument for match mode. If you don't put anything in, you're going to get an exact match. If you do put in a 1, a -1, or a 2, then you will get varying degrees of options, which will give you like the next match or the previous match or a wildcard match. I'm not going to really touch on that stuff in this video, but that does exist in here. You also have the search mode optional argument, which also gives you greater functionality in order to return results based upon your specifications. So we are going to look up Alan. That is our search key. Our lookup range is going to be a list of names in our data set. So that's column B. Our result range will be our country, which is column A. And if we have a missing value, then we want to return a null result. I'm going to hit enter, and I get my United States in there. I'm going to double click on this blue box, and you can see that I have results for everything, even Joe. And even though Joe does not exist and we didn't get a country name, we got a result, which is a null value. One additional note that I will make about entering in missing value prompts, whether it is in an if error or within XLOOKUP's native error management option, ensure that your data types are exactly the same. Data types are words, numbers. Those are defined as things like strings, which is what United States or Alan is. They are string values, which means that they're alphabetical characters. Integers are numbers, so that's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Float values are when you have a number with a decimal point, and then you have date values. Long story short, if you enter in mixed values, such as a value like country, you don't want to enter in a number, right? And you can see that the difference between these two things here is that United States is a string, so it is natively aligning to the left of the cell. 0 is an integer, a number, so it is aligning with the right side of the cell. As you go further down your data journey, if you have mixed data types, you're going to run into problems that you're going to have to clean up. So when you're managing error messages, ensure that the data types are similar, meaning do not mix letters, strings with numbers, integers, unless if you want to work with a, a string object, which has numbers and letters. We'll be touching more on that in future videos. I hope you found this helpful. I think XLOOKUP is probably the best lookup option given how robust it is and how much native functionality it has in it. If you're interested in other types of lookups, I have videos about VLOOKUP and index match, which you can check out, and videos about a ton of other data stuff. I hope you found this resource to be helpful, and I wish you the best of luck on your data journey.